Hi guys, I hope you're having a great day today. We're going to read chapter 3 of Catching Fire today, and just as a refresher, Katniss pretty much spent the majority of the chapter, last chapter, talking with President Snow about her situation, and he kind of let on that he knows about her and Gale and their relationship a little bit and how they feel about each other. So he's saying that she needs to convince him that she really does love Peeta, because the rest of the districts are starting to kind of think about rebelling and everything like that, because Katniss and Peeta really outsmarted the Capitol. So he's kind of threatening her, blackmailing her a bit, that her family could be killed or Gale could be killed if she is not as convincing as she needs to be. So he's left with a threat. Okay, so chapter 3, Catching Fire. Here we go. The smell of blood. It was on his breath. What does he do? I think drink it? I imagine him sipping it from a teacup, dipping a cookie into the stuff and pulling it out dripping red. Outside the window, a car comes to life, soft and quiet like the purr of a cat, and then fades away into the distance. It slips off as it arrived, unnoticed. The room seems to be spinning in slow, lopsided circles, and I wonder if I might black out. I lean forward and clutch the desk with one hand. The other still holds Peeta's beautiful cookie. I think it had a tiger lily on it, but now it's been reduced to crumbs in my fist. I didn't even know I was crushing it, but I guess I had to hold on to something while my world veered out of control. A visit from President Snow. Districts on the verge of uprisings. A direct death threat to Gale, with others to follow. Everyone I love doomed. And who knows who else will pay for my actions, unless I turn things around on this tour, quiet the discontent and put the president's mind at rest. And how? By proving to the country beyond a shadow of doubt that I love Peeta Mellark. I can't do it, I think. I'm not that good. Peeta's the good one, the likable one. He can make people believe anything. I'm the one who shuts up and sits back and lets him do as much of the talking as possible, but it isn't Peeta who has to prove his devotion. It's me. I hear my mother's light, quick tread in the hall. She can't know, I think, not about any of this. I reach my hand over the tray and quickly brush the bits of cookie from my palm and fingers, and I take a shaky sip of my tea. Is everything all right, Katniss? She asks. It's fine. Well, we never see it on television, but the president always visits the victors before the tour to wish them luck, I say brightly. My mother's face floods with relief. Oh, I thought you were in some kind of trouble. Not at all, I say. The trouble will start when my prep team sees how I've let my eyebrows grow back in. My mother laughs, and I think about how there was no going back after I took over caring for my family when I was 11, how I will always have to protect her. Why don't I start your bath? She asks. Great, I say, and I can see how pleased she is by my response. Since I've been home, I've been trying hard to mend my relationship with my mother. I asked her to do things for me instead of brushing aside any offer for help, as I did for years out of anger, letting her handle all the money I won, returning her hugs instead of tolerating them. My time in the arena made me realize how I needed to stop pushing her away for something that she couldn't help, specifically the crushing depression she fell into after my father's death. Because sometimes things happen to people and they're not equipped to deal with them. Besides, there's one wonderful thing she did when I arrived back in the district. After our families and friends had greeted Peeta and me at the train station, there were a few questions allowed from reporters. Someone asked my mother what she thought of my new boyfriend, and she replied that, while Peeta was the very model of what a young man should be, I wasn't old enough to have any boyfriends at all. She followed this with a pointed look at Peeta. There was a lot of laughter and comments like, "Somebody's in trouble," from the press, and Peeta dropped my hand and sidestepped away from me. That didn't last long. There was too much pressure to act otherwise, but it gave us an excuse to be a little more reserved than we had been at the Capitol. And maybe it can help account for how little I've seen in Peeta's company since the cameras left. I go upstairs to the bathroom where a steaming tub awaits. My mother has added a small bag of dried flowers that perfumes the air. None of us are used to the luxury of turning on a tap and having a limitless supply of hot water at our fingertips. We had only cold at our home in the seam, and a bath meant boiling the rest over the fire. I undress and lower myself into the silky water. My mother has poured in some kind of oil as well, and I try to get a grip on things. The first question is who to tell, if anyone. Not my mother or Prim, obviously. They'd only become sick with worry. Not Gale, even if I could get word to him. What would he do with this information anyway? If he were alone, I might try to persuade him to run away. Certainly he could survive in the woods, but he's not alone, and he'd never leave his family, or me. When I get home, I'll have to tell him something about why our Sundays are a thing of the past, but I can't think about that now. Only about my next move. Besides, Gale's already so angry and frustrated with the Capitol that I sometimes think he's going to arrange his own uprising. The last thing he needs is an incentive. No, I can't tell anyone I'm leaving behind in District 12. There are still 3 people I might confide in, starting with Cinna, my stylist. But my guess is Cinna might already be at risk, and I don't want to pull him into any more trouble by closer association with me. Then there's Peeta, who will be my partner in this deception. But how do I begin that conversation? Hey, Peeta, remember how I told you I was kind of faking being in love with you? Well, I really need you to forget about that now and act extra in love with me, or the president might kill Gale. I can't do that. Besides, Peeta will perform well whether he knows what's at stake or not. And that leaves Haymitch. Drunken, cranky, confrontational Haymitch, who I just poured a basin of ice water on. As my mentor in the games, it was his duty to keep me alive. I only hope he's still up for the job. I slide down into the water, letting it block out the sounds around me. I wish the tub would expand so I could go swimming like I used to on a hot summer Sunday in the woods with my father. Those days were a special treat. We would leave early in the morning and hike farther into the woods than usual to a small lake he'd found while hunting. I don't even remember learning to swim. I was so young when he taught me. I just remember diving, turning somersaults and paddling around, the muddy bottom of the lake beneath my toes, the smell of blossoms and greenery, floating on my back as I am now, staring in the blue sky while the clatter of the woods was muted by the water. He'd bag the waterfowl that nested around the shore, and I'd hunt for eggs in the grasses, and we both dig for Katniss roots, the plant for which he named me, in the shallows. At night, when we got home, my mother would pretend not to recognize me because I was so clean. Then she'd cook up an amazing dinner of roasted duck and baked Katniss tubers with gravy. I never took Gale to the lake. I could have. It's time-consuming to get there, but the waterfowl are such easy pickings you can make up for lost hunting time. It's a place I never really wanted to share with anyone, though a place that belonged to only my father and me. Since the games, when I've had little to occupy my days, I've gone there a couple of times. The swimming was still nice, but mostly the visits depressed me. Over the course of the last 5 years, the lake's remarkably unchanged, and I'm almost unrecognizable. Even underwater, I can hear the sounds of commotion. Honking car horns, shoutings of greetings, doors banging shut. It can only mean my entourage has arrived. I just have time to towel off and slip into a robe before my prep team bursts into the bathroom. There's no question of privacy. When it comes to my body, we have no secrets, these 3 people and me. Katniss, your eyebrows! Vinia shrieks right off, and even though the black cloud hanging over me, I have to stifle a laugh. Her aqua hair has been styled so it sticks out in sharp points all over her head, and the gold tattoos that used to be confined above the brow have curled around under her eyes, all contributing to the impression that I've literally shocked her. Octavia comes up and pats Venia's back soothingly, her curvy body looking plumper than usual next to Venia's thin, angular one. There, you can fix those in no time. But what am I going to do with these nails? She grabs my hand and pins it flat behind her 2 pea green ones. No, her skin isn't exactly pea green now. It's more of a light evergreen. The shift in shade has no doubt an attempt to stay abreast of the capricious fashion trends in the capital. Really, Katniss, you could have left me something to work with, she wails. It's true. I've bitten my nails to stubs in the past couple of months. I thought about trying to break the habit, but couldn't think of a good reason why I should. Sorry, I mutter. I hadn't really been spending much time worrying about how it might affect my prep team. Flavius lists a few strands of wet, tangled hair. He gives his head a disapproving shake, causing his orange corkscrew curls to bounce around. Has anyone touched this since you last saw us? He asked sternly. Remember, we specifically asked you to leave your hair alone. Yes, I say, grateful that I can show I haven't totally taken them for granted. I mean, no one's cut it. I did remember that. No, I didn't. It's more like the issue never came up. Since I've been home, all I've done is stick it in its usual braid down my back. This seems to mollify them, and they all kiss me and set me on a chair in my bedroom, and as usual start talking nonstop without bothering to notice if I'm listening. While Venia reinvents my eyebrows and Octavia gives me fake nails and Flavius massages goo into my hair, I hear all about the Capitol. What a hit the games were, how dull things have been since, how no one can wait until PETA and I visit again at the end of the victory tour. After that, it won't be long before the Capitol begins gearing up for the quarter quell. Isn't it thrilling? Don't you feel so lucky? In your very first year of being a victor, you get to be a mentor in a quarter quell. Their words overlap in a blur of excitement. Oh, yes, I say neutrally. It's the best I can do. In a normal year, being a mentor to the tributes is the stuff of nightmares. I can't walk by the school now without wondering what kid I'll have to coach. But to make things even worse, this is the year of the 75th Hunger Games, and that means it's also a quarter quell. They occur every 25 years, making the anniversary of the district's defeat with over-the-top celebrations, and, for some extra fun, some miserable twists for the tributes. I've never been alive for one, of course, but in school I remember hearing that the second quarter quell, the Capitol demanded that twice the number of tributes be provided for the arena. The teachers didn't go into that much more detail than that, which is surprising because that was the year District 12's very own Hamish Abernathy won the crown. Hamish better be preparing for himself for a lot of attention, squeals Octavia. Hamish has never mentioned his personal experience in the arena to me. I would never ask. And if I ever saw his game televised in reruns, I must have been too young to remember it. But the Capitol won't let him forget it this year. In a way, it's a good thing PETA and I will both be available as mentors during the quell, because it's a sure bet that Hamish will be wasted. After they've exhausted the topic of the quarter quell, my prep team launches into a whole lot of stuff about their incomprehensibly silly lives. Who said what about someone I've never heard of, and what sort of shoes they bought, and a long story from Octavia about what a mistake it was to have everyone wear feathers to her birthday party. Soon my brows are stinging, my hair is smooth and silky, and my nails are ready to be painted. Apparently, they've been given instructions to prepare only my hands and face, probably because everything else will be covered in the cold weather. Flavius badly wants to use his own trademark purple lipstick on me, but resigns himself to a pink, and they begin to color my face and nails. I can see the palette by Cinna has been assigned. They were going for girlish, not sexy. Good. I'll never convince anyone of anything if I'm trying to be provocative. Hamish made that very clear when he was coaching me for my interview in the games. My mother comes in, somewhat shyly, and says that Cinna has asked her to show the prep team how she did my hair the day of the reaping. They respond with enthusiasm and then watch, thoroughly engrossed, as she breaks down the process of the elaborate braided hairdo. In the mirror, I can see their earnest faces following her every move, their eagerness when it is their turn to try a step. In fact, all three are so readily respectful. It's nice to see my mother that I feel bad about how I go around feeling so superior to them. Who knows who I would be or what I would talk about if I'd been raised in the Capitol. Maybe my biggest regret would have been feathered costumes at my birthday party, too. When my hair's done, I find Cinna downstairs in the living room, and just the sight of him makes me feel more hopeful. He looks the same as he always does. Simple clothes, short brown hair, just a hint of gold eyeliner. We embrace, and I can barely keep from spilling out the entire episode with President Snow. But no, I've decided to tell Hamish first. He'll know best who to burden it with. It's so easy to talk to Cinna, though. Lately, we've been speaking a lot on the telephone that came with the house. It's sort of a joke because almost no one else we know owns one. There's PETA, but obviously I don't call him. Hamish tore his out of the wall years ago. My friend Madge, the mayor's daughter, has a telephone in her house, but if we want to talk, we do it in person. At first, the thing barely even got used. Then Cinna started to work on my talent. Every victor is supposed to have one. Your talent is the activity you take up since you don't have to work, either in school or your district's industry. It can be anything, really. Anything that they can interview you about. PETA, it turns out, actually has a talent, which is painting. He's been frosting those cakes and cookies for years in his family's bakery. But now that he's rich and he can afford to smear real paint on canvases, I don't have a talent unless you count hunting illegally, which they don't. Or maybe singing, which I wouldn't do for the Capitol in a million years. My mother tried to interest me in a variety of suitable alternatives from a list that Effie Trinket sent her. Cooking, flower arranging, playing the flute. None of them took, although Prim had a knack for all three. Finally, Cinna stepped in and offered to help me develop my passion for designing clothes, which really required development since it was non-existent. But I say yes because it meant getting to talk to Cinna, and he promised he'd do all the work. Now he's arranging things around my living room, clothing, fabric, and sketchbooks with designs he's drawn. I pick up one of the sketchbook and examine a dress I supposedly created. You know, I think I show a lot of promise, I say. Get dressed, you worthless thing, he says, tossing a bundle of clothes at me. I may have no interest in designing clothes, but I do love the ones Cinna's made for me. Like these, flowing black pants made of thick, warm material, a comfortable white shirt, a sweater woven from green and blue and gray strands of kitten soft wool, lace leather boots that don't pinch my shoes. Did I design my outfit? I ask. No, you aspire to design your outfit and be like me, your fashion hero, said Cinna. He hands me a small stack of cards. You'll read off the camera while they're filming the clothes. Try to sound like you care. Just then, Effie Trinket arrives in a pumpkin orange wig to remind everyone we're on schedule. She kisses me on both cheeks while waving at the camera crew, then orders me into position. Effie's the only reason we got anywhere on time in the Capitol, so I try to accommodate her. I start bobbing around like a puppet, holding up outfits and saying meaningless things like, "Don't you love it?" The sound team records me reading from my cards in a chirpy voice so they can insert it later when I'm tossed out of the room so they can film my and Cinna's designs in peace. Prim got out early from school for the event. Now she stands in the kitchen being interviewed by another crew. She looks lovely in a sky blue frock that brings out her eyes, her blonde hair pulled back in a matching ribbon. She's leaning a bit forward on her toes of her shiny white boots, and she's about to take flight, bam! Like it's someone actually hit me in the chest. No one has, of course, but the pain is so real I take a step back. I squeeze my eyes and I don't see Prim. I see Rue, the 12-year-old girl from District 11 who was my ally in the arena. She could fly, bird-like, from tree to tree, catching onto the slenderest branches. Rue, who I didn't save, who I let die. I picture her lying on the ground with a spear still wedged into her stomach. Who else will I fail to save from the Capitol's vengeance? Who else will be dead if I don't satisfy President Snow? I realize Cinna's trying to put a coat on me, so I raise my arms, and I feel fur inside and out encasing me. It's from no animal I've seen. Ermine, he tells me as I stroke the white sleeve. Leather gloves, a bright red scarf, something furry covers my ears. You're bringing earmuffs back in style. I hate earmuffs, I think. They make it hard to hear, and since I was blasted deaf in one ear in the arena, I dislike them even more. After I won, the Capitol repaired my ear, but I still find myself testing it. My mother hurries up with something cupped in her hands. For good luck, she says. It's the pin Madge gave me before I left the games, a mockingjay flying in a circle of gold. I tried to give it to Rue, but she wouldn't take it. She said the pin was the reason she'd decided to trust me. Cinna fixes it on the knot in the scarf. Effie Trinket's nearby, clapping her hands. Attention, everyone! We're about to do the first outdoor shot where the victors greet each other at the beginning of their marvelous trip. All right, Katniss, big smile. You're very excited, right? I don't exaggerate when I say she shoves me out the door. For a moment, I can't quite see right because of the snow, which is now coming down in earnest. Then I make out Peeta coming through his front door. In my head, I can hear President Snow's directive, convince me. And I know I must. My face breaks into a huge smile and I start walking in Peeta's direction. Then, as if I can't stand it another second, I start running. He catches me and spins me around and then he slips. He still isn't entirely command of his artificial leg and we fall into the snow, me on top of him, and that's when we have our first kiss in months. It's full of fur and snowflakes and lipstick, but underneath all that, I can feel the steadiness that Peeta brings to everything. And I know I'm not alone. As badly as I have hurt him, he won't expose me in front of the cameras. He won't condemn me with a half-hearted kiss. He's still looking out for me, just as he did in the arena. Somehow the thought makes me want to cry. Instead, I pull him to his feet, tuck my glove through the crook of my arm, and merrily pull him on our way. The rest of the day is a blur, getting to the station, bidding everyone goodbye, the train pulling out, the old team, Peeta and me, Effie and Haymitch, Cinna and Portia, Peeta's stylist, dining on an indescribably delicious meal I don't remember. Then I'm swathed in pajamas and a voluminous robe, sitting in my plush compartment, waiting for the others to go to sleep. I know Hamish will be up for hours. He doesn't like to sleep when it's dark out. When the train seems quiet, I put on my slippers and pad down to the door. I have to knock several times before he answers, scowling as if he's certain I brought in bad news. "And what do you want?" he says, nearly knocking me out of the cab with wine fumes. "I have to talk to you," I whisper. "Now?" he says. I nod. "This better be good." He waits, but I feel certain every word we utter on a capital train is being recorded. "Well?" he barks. The train starts to break, and for a second I think President Snow is watching me and doesn't approve of my confiding in Hamish and has decided to go ahead and kill me now, but we're just stopping for fuel. "The train's so stuffy," I say. It's a harmless phrase, but I see Hamish's eyes narrow in understanding. "I know what you need." He pushes past me and lurches down the hall to a door. When he rustles it open, a blast of snow hits us. He trips out onto the ground. A Capitol attendant rushes to help, but Hamish waves her away with a good-naturedly as he staggers off. "Just want some fresh air. Only be a minute." "Sorry, he's drunk," I say apologetically. "I'll get him." I hop down and stumble along the track behind him, soaking my slippers with snow, as he leads me behind the end of the train so we will not be overheard. Then he turns on me. "What?" I tell him everything. About the president's visit, about Gale, and about how we're all going to die if I fail. His face sobers, grows older in the glow of the red tail lights. "Then you can't fail." "If you could just help me get through this trip," I begin. "No, Katniss, it's not just the trip," he says. "What do you mean?" I say. "Even if you pull it off, they'll be back in another few months to take us all to the games. You and Peeta, you'll be mentors now every year from here on out. And every year they'll revisit the romance and broadcast the details of your private life. And you'll never, ever be able to do anything but live happily ever after with that boy." The full impact of what he has said is hitting me. I will never have a life with Gale, even if I want to. I'll never be allowed to live alone. I will have to forever be in love with Peeta. The Capitol will insist on it. I'll have a few years maybe, because I'm still only 16, to stay with my mother and Prim, and then... "Do you understand what I mean?" he presses me. I nod. He means there's only one future if I want to keep those I love alive and stay alive myself. I'll have to marry Peeta.